I think Vanya is actually like at the very beginning when you first meet him and they're first in his house and he's like doing flips on the bed and shit. I'm like, I've definitely seen people like that. Like that is an actual, like that seems like a real client to me. Like he was so excited. So I actually like there was like a moment when we're watching it and I'm like, I look at my friend and I'm like, I've seen people so much like this.
Apparently, anything can happen in the champagne room because we're talking movies. We're talking Anora, starring Mikey Madison, written and directed by Sean Baker. Chris, you have rape eyes.
Listen, don't be saying stuff we can't take back. And you know what? Fuck your boss. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? We're going to be talking about Sean Baker's latest film, Anora. And to help us out, we have a couple guests. Returning is Justine Smith, screen editor at Cult MTL, professional cornographer, film critic, contributor to Little White Lies, Fantasia Underground programmer, ruthless content god, and hyperallergic carb queen. And we have Jo Parton, professional girlfriend, corn performer, erotic model, harm reduction activist, Lego enthusiast, pug mother, and silly Goose. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you.
All right. So Molly, since it's your first time on the show and you have a very specific profession, do you want to kind of introduce yourself a bit, talk about the work you've been doing, and we kind of shamelessly self-promote when we start the show. So anything you want to talk about that you've got going on and that you want our audience to know about. So take it away.
I mean, I'm primarily an escort, so anyone that needs dates, I'm here for that.
So yeah, keep going. I feel like I'm gonna have a lot of questions for you on this.
That's okay. I'm down for questions. I make porn, but like more on the custom video side. Yeah. Well, I fucking hate introductions.
Okay, cool. So you know what? Listen,
so
I'm sure I'm gonna ask you the questions that people already asked. So escort, what is it? How does that operate, especially in Canada? I mean, every country has its own laws around this stuff. So whatever you're comfortable talking
about. The laws don't really make sense. So it's a big mixture of different things going on. Not illegal for me to do the work. It's illegal for me to pay other people to help me do anything. It's illegal for you to purchase.
I'm writing this down. This is good stuff.
We're pushing for decrim. And the government is fighting it back pretty much the entire way. So
basically you can sell sex, but you can't buy it.
Yes.
that makes for a very difficult transaction, I think.
It's a bit rough. It's difficult to keep safe. People don't want to screen. They're worried about everything being a cop sting and then getting arrested or also being robbed by other people, but it's a bit of a mess.
So is there like legitimate ways for people to contact people that do your job? I'm really trying to make sure that we stay on side here. So
yeah, there's a lot of advertising websites. Some of them are more legitimate or more trustworthy than others. I don't know if you want me to name drop any of those or not.
I mean, are you able to name drop them? Like I
can name drop them.
We can do whatever we want, but like I just don't want you to get in any trouble with any of the people you work with. So
no, I won't get in trouble for just advertising websites. No one will care about that.
Okay.
I mean, if they do, it's be more like they're very happy about it. So Backpage went down and then Leolist became the most common one. Not the most safe one though. I do recommend using stuff like Tryst or Turb. There's a new one that a friend of mine actually started up called Speakeasy X, Toronto-based, created by a sex worker, being run by sex workers. Very excited to see how this comes out. Really, you just have to do research, make sure they have like social media presences, how you can find reviews. That's really good. Yeah.
Scott, do you have any questions? I know you are asking me something right before the show started here, Scott.
Well, I was just wondering, like, how, like, what's the corn? Because I don't understand what corn is.
It's porn, but corn.
Okay.
It's more so because on things like Instagram, you can't say porn without getting shadow banned, having your account constantly flagged, and so you can't show up in explore feed, so you can't grow, and then often you end up with your account being um, suspended. Technically, they say banned or deleted. You can appeal it. I've appealed mine several times. You kind of just learn what not to say. Zuck really doesn't like um, sex workers.
Well, and you see it on TikTok as well, correct?
I don't use TikTok, so I trust you on that.
Listen, we just got on TikTok, so if you like TikTok, do find us on TikTok and follow us. We'd like to stop having to do weird dances to get an audience.
Good luck. I think that's all of it, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Justine, what about you? What have you been up to?
It's been a week since I last spoke to you, so not much. I guess it's like if you're talking about shameless self-promotion, my I'm you can pre-order Chantal Ackerman box set from the British Film Institute. I have two essays that are going to be on it. I don't remember the exact date it's coming out, but it is available for pre-order. I am writing about Hotel Monterey and Jean Dielman. So that's exciting. Otherwise, Montreal's so beautiful in November. It's so cold and rainy and miserable, but it's lovely, in its own charming way. So I'm good.
So, if you listen to our show, Tatane, we had Justine on, and we were talking about her interesting job in also being a porn writer, I guess, screenplay writer.
Yeah.
And I looked up your IMDb, and I was like, oh man, like how many? You have like 300 and some odd entries on there in like 2 years. So you really are like a voracious writer when it comes to the porn industry.
Yeah. I mean, there's a high demand. A lot of it is like very like low stakes, low effort work. Like I'm gonna be like very frank about that. It's that. But occasionally like I get to do more interesting scripts, like the one that I had mentioned, like Confessions of a Sinful Nun 2. I would say like 2 or 3 times a year, I get to do something a bit more ambitious. I did a musical this year, which was kind of fun.
Like a musical
Uh,
porn or a musical?
yeah, well, I didn't write the music though, but we did like a country style musical. We did 24 out like we did like one all set in a video store in the 90s, so it starts like at opening and the film ends like at closing time, so we kind of have fun with it as much as we can. I mostly work with directors and I work with one producer, and so I kind of just do like a lot of one-on-one stuff with them, which is also a bit more fun because it's like once you start working for like the bigger companies, it's like almost just data science. It's literally like they have spreadsheets that you fill in and you have to like use certain words or not use certain words. And they're like, this something like this has happens at like 30 seconds in. Like it's just crazy. I hate that. Um,
So it's not as gonzo as people probably think. Like it's not at the higher
no,
end, it's not people just like running, gunning, and like shooting sex scenes, basically.
no, no, no. I will also it's like I think I don't remember if I mentioned this, and I'm sure Molly will relate. It's like I actually it's like even though it's like in this kind of legal gray zone, a lot of it, it's heavily regulated in terms of self-policing. Uh the credit card companies have an insane amount of power. So it's like anything that is or is not in porn is like basically Visa decides.
You're charging too high prices for sweaters, glasses. You right to jail. You undercook fish, believe it or not, jail.
And those rules can change at the drop of a hat, and a lot of it is like people it's kind of like the same like corn producers or companies are trying to guess a little bit like how to get around the censorship because it's not like a written down list of like this is what you have to do. That's why you see like a lot of the not stepsister stuff, and I've been doing that's like most of what I do, the faux incest, and like it's becoming like every year there's like new rules. Like it used to be like there's never you're not allowed to be adopted. The people had to have no like if it's an adult they have to have met only after the age of 18 even if the relationship starts after. You have to say
Wait,
2 or
wait, you're
3
so
times.
you're talking like the backstory. The backstory actually has
And
to
it
be
has to
vetted.
be,
Yeah, because it can't
and
be
you have to
grooming.
yeah, and you
But
have to say it out loud. So it's like that's why it's like the like porn scripts, like it's a cliche, but it's like you have to say like it was my 21st birthday, because you have to like establish. I tried to get around it. You can't even say like college age or university, like that's too vague.
when my
Some
mom and
companies
dad met on my 21st birthday or whatever, like directly say it.
exactly, and it's like some companies will have you say it 3 times.
Oh, it's like
We've also have to
Beetlejuice.
yeah. Sometimes it's like you have to say like you can say like daddy, but you have to say stepdad 2 or 3 times before, and then you can kind of go into the more like taboo stuff. Now, most companies ask me that not only did the characters have to meet over the age of 18, they have to have known each other for like less than 2 years or less than a year and a half, something like that. So it's like it's always
Sounds like
kind of
my
shifting.
relationships.
Yeah. But it's like it's just this constant navigation of like what they're gonna let pass, and it's like and, like I find it's like really boring work, the faux incest. It's like actually the worst one, but it's still like immensely popular. So as long as it's immensely popular, it's probably gonna be
It doesn't sell for
crazy.
me.
It's everyone, every director and producer I talk to, they hate it. It just it sells. So
It
Wait,
doesn't sell for me. It won't sell for
okay, well
me.
that's you're lucky.
I until
It
you make it,
sucks.
and then you're like, it's gonna sell so well, and then everyone's like,
so
I
so
don't
you
know.
haven't. So what do you find is the actually? So on that topic, what are your big sellers, Molly?
Blasphemy.
So the nun stuff, like, hey, I think
No,
I
no,
sent
but
you the trailer, right?
yeah, but blasphemy
Oh,
now, it's like if you're working with the big companies, they won't let you touch religion for like almost 2 or 3 years. And we did another nun porn, I believe in 2023 or 2022, and it was nominated at the AVN Awards, and they wouldn't even show the clips from the film at the awards ceremony.
oh my
I mean, and
God.
it's like a porn show, like it's but they won't let like even some of them. It's like you can't like reference anything that has to do with religion. It's like it's taboo. That one I don't think has to do with the credit card companies. I think they're afraid really of like the
Backlash.
far right, yeah, who are obviously pretty aggressively anti porn and sex work, and if they're going to
Yeah,
use they're going to find ways to make it illegal or make it about privacy or make it about uh
yeah.
what do you
Protecting
call it?
children. They love
Hmm.
protecting children, right? So
Yeah, so
Well, I mean, doxing is an actual thing that happens, unfortunately, and like fucking with the alt-right is much more likely to get you doxed. So
yeah,
I understand why people are not like the companies are not wanting to do it. Um,
yeah,
I mean, we're
100%.
already
It's
being attacked from all sides by like organizations that have like become conglomerates of like religious and then like rad femmes that want to get rid of sex work. So like, you can't really go into blasphemy too mainstream if you're like brazzers because they're already being fucked.
and not in
I would
the
Now,
also
not in the
this
good fun way that you're being paid to do, right?
Yeah.
Like
no.
I
No,
was going
it's
to ask
actually
one. Oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say one, if you actually are like concerned about issues like your online privacy, follow sex workers, because a lot of these bills that are meant to protect safety or protect privacy are often the opposite.
Mhm.
And they're actually deliberate, like not they're quite deliberately in place to punish or ban or drive like sex work into the corners, but the collateral damage of that is often like very heavy, even for somebody who does not pay for sex.
Yeah.
These are like bills that are, and they exist in Canada too. It's not just an American phenomenon. They're often framed as like online safety acts. You got to be very like be wary whenever you hear safety when it comes to internet, because oftentimes I would say it's the opposite.
Scott, you were gonna
What
say
I was
something?
going
Yeah.
yeah, I was going to ask Justine. She said a while ago that there is a very high demand for like writers. Now, just one quick question: how does one get into it?
It's incredibly poorly paid. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Like it is not enough to make a
That's
living.
why you have 300 writing credits already. You're like, go, 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 go,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, yeah. I write fast. But it's a lot of people, you just do it through like you apply through like the major companies. I've never gotten the job through the major companies. I've applied to MindGeek. I've done interviews. I never get it. Otherwise, it's like I've just met people and we have common interests and they're like, "Do you want to write for me?" And that's how I've gotten the jobs.
So, is that how the current director that you work with fairly often, is that you just kind of met through kind of
Yeah.
interactions and then you just started writing and he continued to work with you kind of thing?
Yeah. He was a film, just likes movies, and we both liked movies. So that's kind of what it hit it off.
Hey, Molly, just actually on the topic of like working in an industry, I know there's a lot of talk around like OnlyFans now and da da da. Is there any myths you want to get rid of around like sex work in general before we start talking about the film? Because I think it'll also play really well into Anora, because it's about sex work. So
in general,
yeah, well, like people are like, oh, it must be nice to go on OnlyFans and take your clothes off and make a bunch of money. Like, I know that that's not true, but
I hate OnlyFans. I hate it so much.
Okay, why do you hate OnlyFans specifically?
It's a lot of work and the payoff is not that great unless you're really lucky and you blow up. But like generally speaking, you don't make. I think like the average like earning is like less than $200 a month or something like that for most, like from like the highest to the lowest.
Why is that? Is that because they take a lot of the revenue themselves, or what's the metrics behind that?
They do take a lot, but also it's like you need to do so much like self-promoting and advertising on other platforms, and the platforms are also deplatforming you at the exact same time and shadow banning you. So if you're trying to like promote on Instagram, you're going to get your account shut down. Certain subreddits on Reddit will block you or whatever, remove you from their subreddits, so you can't promote there. And then Twitter is also doing this thing where they're starting to like flag your account as adult content or sensitive content and then pushing it down in the algorithm, so you can't get it out there either. So it's very much you have to be really good at what you're doing. And it's almost impossible to get started now and like blow up. You have to have a fan base already. So like start on Chatterbait or like My Free Cams, or if you're in mainstream porn already, or if you're like the fucking Catch Me Outside girl and shit like that. So it's a nightmare. I don't like it, but I love escorting.
So is that kind of like what you prefer to work in versus all the like
Yeah,
kind of side hustle stuff?
yeah, I entirely love it. I like meeting people. I went to school to be a social worker, and then I was like, fuck this, it's underpaid and people don't like you. Nobody wants to see a social worker, even when they like you. I don't know, it's kind of depressing. So I feel like I'm using all of the schooling I did in a profession where people enjoy my company and are happy to see me. And I feel like I make a difference in people's days when I see them versus like, I don't know, if you're working in OW and you can't give them the right answers to get the money, and they just need money.
Yeah, you're like, the
Things
problem
like that.
needs money and you can't give that to me, so thanks.
Yeah, but I can give them the answer in this scenario. So
What this is going to be a weird question. Like, what kind of hours do you typically work? Like
days. I don't
days?
see people after 11 p.m. because nothing good happens that late.
Either nothing good happens at work and all the fun stuff you want to do in your social life happens after 11, right? So
Yeah. So
what's a standard day look like? Again, I feel like this is stuff that nobody thinks about, you know what I mean? So and then we'll talk about the movie. We'll talk about the movie.
I don't have a standard day. I work when I'm booked. I don't sit around in lingerie waiting for people to like come over. That's not what I do. I don't like that. I do this work so I have free time and so I can do whatever I want. So I don't really do same days really either, unless they like I'm already working and I've got a free hour or two or something like that. But if I start my day and I don't have anything booked, I'm going to make other plans and I'm not changing them unless you're offering me a significant like chunk of change. Like my life matters too. So when I do have bookings, it'll be like one or two, maybe three a day. Like I did two yesterday, then I went to a show after. So like, I don't know, it's kind of like regular people life where you go to work and then you leave. But
And then you do your social life.
yeah, just my work's a little bit shorter. I don't know. It's like I did 4 hours yesterday. So
How long have you, and then we'll pivot into the film. How long have you been in the industry?
2019.
Okay. And so far so good?
Oh, I love it.
Amazing. Justine, do you have anything else you want to say? Scott, do you have any other questions before I pivot us into Anora?
No,
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. So Anora is, Sean Baker's latest film. It won the Palme d'Or. Basically, I'm going to start with a quote. So, Peter DeBruge from Variety, taken alone, Anora is a profane kick, but seen in the context of Baker's reoccurring fixation from Starlet to Red Rocket, it stresses his belief that sex work is real work, and that it's more central to society than we're willing to admit. I want to know what you guys think of that statement. I actually want to start with Molly because she's probably the most in the sex work industry. What do you think of this film and Baker's take on sex work? Go ahead.
I think he's obsessed with us.
And I was like, why are you so obsessed with me?
And not necessarily in the best way. I don't know. I would like him to see him hire more sex workers in like lots of things, or like give other people a shot. But I feel like Anora was Pretty Woman, but like modern day.
Okay. But he did hire Andrea Warhan, who's
As a
Canadian writer.
consultant, he doesn't have to take her stuff in if he didn't want to. I don't know.
Fair enough. So
like I'm saying he's not doing the worst. He could do a lot worse, but I'm like, I don't know. I find like people are saying the representation's different, but all I kind of see is that he just took sex workers and took them from side characters and made them main characters, but then he kind of kept the exact same stories where we're like, all looking for someone rich to get us out of the industry, like save us. We don't want to do this. Or like we're super gullible and can be tricked into marrying a 21-year-old type of shit like that. I don't know. It's just kind of throws me off. It makes us look like we have no intuition or like gut, like we're guided by our gut in this industry. Like you have to trust yourself. And I find like it looks like we don't have that. I don't know. It makes it look
like agency, basically, like any agency around your own life.
No, the agency's there. It's just that it makes us look like we all make stupid decisions. I don't know.
Well, and Mikey Madison, who plays Anora, I think she does an amazing job, just definitely as an actor.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting about what you're saying too is she comes across as like pretty smart, pretty streetwise, like she knows what the fuck is going on, and then
gets roped into this really shitty scenario. like I don't know. Like the movie's good. I'm not saying it's not a good movie. It's a great movie. Like I really enjoyed it. The ending was a little but
we'll talk about the ending. And there is going to be some kind of spoilers in this because I do want to be able to dig into this film, but we'll come back to the ending in a little bit.
Yeah, but like it's just one of those, like it's good, but I don't know if I like the representation of sex workers.
Okay.
In it. I don't know.
Justine, what do you think?
I believe we briefly mentioned it last week, is that I have similarly mixed feelings on the film. I think that it's like very vibrant and it's fun a lot of the time. I love the characters. I think that everyone is like really fantastic. Cara Goulian, who plays Toros, I'm like obsessed with. I think he's so fantastic in this film, and just it's such a interesting foil. But I think it's like I have my expectations, like seeing all the reviews, and I even went back and looked at them because I thought that I was fabricating, that so many people were like, oh my God, this is like the most fun I've ever had at the movies. I'm like, I found so much of it kind of horrifying. And like there's this undercurrent of like so much stress and like danger and violence that like I don't know if the film is dealing with in a way that I feel comfortable with. I've only seen it once, and again, I mostly like it. But at the same time, I still have these feelings of like, it just made me feel really gross in a way that I don't know if that's baggage that I'm bringing to the film or if it's something that I'm experiencing. I'm also very curious because I've seen so many mixed reactions to Igor as a character. Igor Vanya? It's Vanya? No, wait, no.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Do you mean the main character?
Vanya's the husband, and Igor is the
oh yeah, so
the
Vanya.
henchman.
Both surprised that Igor's a henchman.
Yeah. So Ivan, Vanya, because I do think that he gives a very good performance, but I find him so horrifying from the onset. Like it's like, to me, it's like red flag, red flag, red flag. And I'm like, she's smart. How is she not seeing all of this? And I guess she is to a certain extent. There is this idea that she maybe thinks she's smarter than the situation that she's found herself in. But I have mixed feelings, and like I've been talking to with my friends, and like we're kind of trying to like pin down what it is, because on one hand I do think it is a very fun movie, but on the other I just can't like shake that feeling of something about it not working for me in a like a very like fundamental way.
Scott, what about you, man?
Um, so for me, like overall, yeah, I enjoyed this movie, and I think it is well packaged together. Like choices made, like the music, I think worked out great, everything like that. But I think just like everyone else is saying, none of these characters are really likable, with the exception of like Igor. Like they have no real like redeeming qualities. And like I just really found it hard to like kind of root for Anora because like I watched this with my wife, and her basic summation of this is, they're trying to tell a Cinderella story where apparently like a stripper thought she won the lottery and didn't want to let go of her ticket because she wanted the money. Because at no point, like personally, I found that these people were ever like in love, right? Like like every, I guess, intimate interaction was a transaction, right? It was always discussed before and after, and it was always more money, right? Like she always got more money. Um, but that's why I always found it like super like hard when it got to the third act and she was like, no, we're in love. Like, don't say like you want to get divorced kind of thing. It was just like I never personally saw like that kind of like relationship between the two. And I think that could be where like the disconnect kind of comes.
Molly, what do you think about that?
Um, so I agree. I also don't think they were in love. I do think it was set up that way. Like he's the whale and she's got really lucky and it's a retirement scheme. Which is not bad. I mean, like if that's how you want to get your bag, do it. I don't want to put all my financial dependence on one person. So like my goal is not retirement. Like I want to see multiple people. Um, so like it just kind of seemed like she was setting herself up in a way that like if this fails, it's going to go really poorly, especially with like, I don't know. I mean, he's 21 or something like that. Like he was a kid and he doesn't even have money. It's his dad's.
Yeah, his dad's billions, and then in the end, you really see that the mom is running the show too.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
she's the boss. So this is actually the out of like most of Sean Baker's work, he typically works with a co-writer named Chris Burgage. And this is the first, he didn't work with him on this. So this is all Sean's work. Did you guys like go back and look at any other Baker work in preparation for the show?
Yes.
Okay,
I
so do you think that he maybe does a better job in some other films with his representation, that maybe that co-writer brings something that is now missing because Sean did it all on his own, is where I'm kind of going with this.
Like in terms of character, like I rewatched everything except for his first one, Starlet.
Starlight, yeah, I saw Starlight, yeah.
That's the only one I didn't rewatch, but I think it's always the same. Like in reality, like none of his characters really have any like redeeming, like even Red Rocket, the main guy, he's like,
he's
literally
awful. He's
but that's the thing.
awful.
These are the main characters. Like the only one you can kind of go with is Florida Project because it's going based off the child's the main character, right? But like when you go in terms of like other than that, like every other character I've seen him write, like they're all like they don't really have that redeeming quality. It's just like a snippet of the life, right? Like nobody's perfect, nobody's good all the time. But
yeah, the idea that we're flawed people, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's always it seems like with his movies, it's always like the worst day of that person's life kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, so on the topic of Anora, like, I mean, I think it's really gorgeous. And that opening scene, I think, is super, super sexy. But it also shows like her hustle, where she's like, hey, do you want to dance? And like, I think that Mikey Madison did such a good job in this acting role. I think a lot of times dancers, the actors that play them, it's like they're not serious about that it's work. And so they treat that part of the performance, either they don't do their research or they don't, it's very physical, so they don't study and train for it. Where like, I believe that Mikey Madison is a high-end dancer. Like I could easily see her working in like a club and making good money because she's very, very proficient at the work she does. And And I think that it's shot, so it uses the same cinematographer. It's weird. I thought Sean Baker actually worked with the same cinematographer all the time, but he kind of moves around. He had the same one from Tangerine, and Starlet is one person. Then he has a different person for Florida Project. But then he went with Drew Daniels for Red Rocket in this. And Red Rocket and this film have very similar cinematography in the sense that there's lots of scenes that almost look like stills, or stills with like people moving through them. Like the way he sets up those shots, whether they're on the, Coney Island or in Red Rocket. One of my, favorite images is the main character on the bicycle, and you see the refineries behind him at dusk. And there's like a bokeh, because he's often shooting on 35 millimeter. He's again shooting on 35 millimeter here. He's using Loma anamorphic lenses. So you get really good bokeh, and you get that in Anora and in Red Rocket. So again, I think it's a very beautiful film. Sort of like I did a criticism of the substance. I feel like there's a natural endpoint to Anora, and then it kind of keeps going for a bit. And then that gives you that other ending, like the big ending that everybody's talking about. What do you guys think as far as like pacing and stuff?
I don't have an issue with the pacing. Like I said, I find it, to me, it reminds me a lot of like Uncut Gems. I find the fun, like once they start to look for Vanya, it's very like a high octane stress. Obviously there's that kind of like false ending. There's almost like two quote unquote false endings, like I would say, like after they find him and then the aftermath of her returning home. I think it's an interesting structure, but it's kind of like I have like so many mixed feelings about Sean Baker in general, because I do think he's an entertainer and his movies are entertaining. But then once you start to think about like what he's trying to do, I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to take away from this? I feel as though he's leaning with this film and Red Rocket and maybe even Florida Project, what all of them, I guess, um, as kind of like metaphors for the American experience or the American idea. I think in Red Rocket's the most obvious. They constantly have the radio on of talking about Donald Trump, talking about elections. But I think that he is, as much as like he is like enamored, like almost like to a like fetishistic degree with the kind of characters he's portraying. And so they do feel like so real and singular. They also feel like metaphors in a strange way. So then they lose their humanity in a way too. It's like they become tools to say something about how he sees the world. But even then I'm like, what is he actually saying? Like, what is Anora supposed to say about, even like on the base level, Anora as a character, and also about that environment and the society that she's lives in? To me is not necessarily clear overall.
Well, what do you think about the way that Baker is trying to say stuff in this or in any of his films?
I agree with Justine in that it isn't clear the message that's coming across, and also it depends entirely on who's looking at it and how you're looking at it. Like if you're going into this, I don't like with zero experience, like with like sex work or sex workers and stuff like that, it can give you like a really like skewed viewpoint on what we're actually like. I don't know. Like Red Rocket is like a really good thing, like example in terms of like the dude's a creep. And that's very much like the idea and kind of the reality a lot of the time of a lot of straight men that go into porn, unfortunately, that they're not always like the most ethical. I don't know how to put that
like,
in.
they could just be creeps. You can just say that too.
Yeah, like not necessarily mainstream porn, but like the guys that have contacted me being like, I want to get into porn, but like they're not really serious about it type of thing. And then it's kind of just they're trying to latch on to somebody that could make them famous or make them rich. And like sure that is, but it doesn't really come off like he's trying to say this is like as a warning. It kind of I don't know, it's just I don't know.
I mean, I think
articulate this properly, but
he
like,
does come across as like a creep. Like I don't think there's anything about him that he is being idealized. And in the end of Red Rocket, like he's the loser. I mean, he preys on like a really young girl. I get actually no, I guess technically the very, very ending, he does show back up at her house, and you're left thinking like maybe he'll have a relationship with her, but he loses the money, he gets the shit beat out of him again. Like he's a degen. I just rewatched it, and I'm like, fuck,
Yeah.
this guy's an awful dude. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I think I'm just worried about like the larger implications of people thinking that that's the normal within like the industry is kind of where I'm getting like the representations of people kind of like being um like we're all out to exploit people
Gotcha.
type
Yeah,
of
yeah.
thing. Like it's not an inherently like we're not all inherently exploiting our clients or the people around us. And I feel like a lot of the times that's kind of how like in Anora, it kind of feels like if you look at I don't know how old she actually is because she's saying her age at one point, but also she's a dancer. So like she's probably lying about her age when she tells him how old she is at a certain point. So if you look at it like as like a power imbalance in terms of ages and stuff, it could come off like she's fucking exploiting early 20s kid who
Yeah.
has been very sheltered, even though like the power balance in money is totally different too. So there's like all these different like levels that are being looked at. And stuff, but I
So
don't
one of the
know.
things we like to do on this show is fix a movie. Like Molly, if you were like, okay, how do we make this better? How do we make this like as close as possible to a perfect film for you? What would you change? Like you have full license to like, you know, if you want to even start switching out actors and stuff, fine. Yeah, like it's kind of fun to just play director, you know?
I haven't gotten that far. I do agree that she did a really good job though, because like she came off like a salesperson, and that's kind of what dancing like in clubs is kind of like. Like you have to be really good at sales. So like I think she really came off that way rather than like overly sexualizing it as like you have to be super like she's not in lingerie the whole time she's walking around. It feels really like you're in a strip club when
So
you're
that felt
watching
real
it.
at least. That like they did a good
Yeah,
job of that.
I do think that herself, like as a character, like is believable. I don't know. I think it's more that the idea that this is a mind-blowing representation for sex workers is more where I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay,
I
I
would have
want you to
changed
think about. Go ahead. Go
the
ahead. Go ahead.
ending. I would change the ending.
Okay, and we're going to talk about the ending in a sec. And then I
Yeah.
also want you to, if there's better examples of sex works in cinema, I want you to think about that because I do want to try and give that out to the audience. Justine, I feel like you might be able to have off the top of your head a way to fix this film. Yes? No?
What I would do is, and I would apply this actually to all of Sean Baker's films, because he is like I'm not gonna like move him away from what clearly interests him, but I think if the movie uh and even most of his films, which are interested clearly in class and class ability, focused more because they already have those elements on the actual work rather than the fantasies and the transactions. I think it might be more interesting as like a film, not as a film, maybe. Like it might be more boring, but I think it might be more real in a way. I feel as though it's like he's very interested in people who are in lower classes or in vulnerable classes. And he is interested in the work because I do agree, like when you see her working, it's work, like it's labor, all of these things. And it's as though he can't connect that labor to like a greater idea about the world. I think it's like even listening to you guys talk, like the thing that keeps coming back to me is that he's clearly very fascinated in portraying the way that people engage in labor and see it as again a metaphor for like the way that Americans are. Like he's especially Red Rocket, the Donald Trump thing, like it's like they're supposed to be seen as almost like two peas in a pod. And maybe that's just how Americans are in his perspective. But maybe this is like me being like a bit too like leftist. It's like they're also it's like why can't you connect it to like labor struggles or like actually making a political point rather than again like making it about like I think Americans like money and are willing to do anything to like have the social mobility. And even so, like I do think he's trying to also be realistic about the fact that we live in a very unfair world. And even if you have the money, depending on how you got it from those who are elites, they're going to continue to judge you and mistreat you. Uh, But I think that, yeah, it's like if it was more focused on the work, which is already present and he's able to do it, I think maybe it would be more compelling of a film. I also think it would force him to think about how he's portraying people in a more honest way. And again, he's already on that path, in my opinion. Like, so he has that. It's not like out of nothing.
What about you, Scott? You got any notes on Sean Baker's work here?
Well, I said it before. It just seems like not the same trope, but yeah, like I think this film 100% it's enjoyable. Like, and like Justine was saying, like because I'm gonna mispronounce the name, but the person who played Taros, he was like one of my favorites, and I think he's in every single one of Baker's films, right? Because I saw him in Tangerine and in Florida Project. But my two favorite scenes in this movie is one when they're in the house and she's like, he shows up the first time and she's like tied up with the phone cord, and they're like, why is she tied up? And they're like, she's fucking crazy, kind of thing. And then he starts just like having a conversation with her, like, you do realize like this kid has fucked both of us, right? Like, I'm fucked because of my employers, and he's just fucked you over because he took off. Because it made like these henchmen kind of like super like relatable, because you don't really see that because they really didn't want to hurt her or anything like that. But my all-time favorite scene, and I think it was a missed opportunity kind of, was the standoff on the plane when they were like, get in there, and she was like, no, I'm going to talk to my lawyer first, because I didn't sign a prenup, we're going to get a divorce, but I'm taking your fucking kid for half. But then all of a sudden she just buckled, like she had the strength, but then all of a sudden she just buckled when the
But the way the mom threatens her is
but
very.
she goes, do you have a house, and you have a car? And at no point did you see her with a car. She was taking an Uber everywhere and stuff, and she lived with her sister, so it seemed like it was her sister's house. At no point it seemed like any of that threats were actually related to her.
But no. But she keeps going. She keeps going, and she goes like, your mother, your brother, your family, like they will be at risk forever, kind of thing. Basically, like, we will fucking punish you and everybody associated with you regardless. Like, you cannot win this with me. And I mean, I'm not suggesting that you couldn't expand on that, but I think that is kind of the premise that's getting pushed there, is that she realizes how powerless she is.
I saw it different, but yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, okay, actually, I just want to take a quick break and be like, hey, if you guys are liking this show, head over to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review, leave us a comment, leave us a review. We are trying to get onto Rotten Tomatoes as official critics. And we also want to say thank you to the Tarot Group for the passes for letting us see this film.
Thank you very much.
I want to talk about the ending, and I'm talking like the ending, because there's a lot of discourse around that. So for those that haven't seen the film, this is going to be a big spoiler, but yeah, Molly, let's start with you. What do you think of the final ending?
Sorry, like the car part?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I found it like a rough way to end the movie. I mean, because we don't see her like vulnerable or like breaking down in that way at all. I don't know. On top of the like, there's a few different ways that I'm like approaching this. I'm approaching it from like the representation aspect of like, she fucks this random guy she just met without a condom, and like that kind of puts like that we're like the safer sex shit, like that we're trying so hard to like convince people all the time that like we're like a lot safer than like people think we are. Like they think that we're all going to be like, dirty whores, quote unquote. And we're trying to fight against that, and that's kind of like where I went on that. But there's also like, it was really hard watching like the sex followed by like the extreme like breakdown afterwards. I don't know, it just felt a little trauma porny. Like it wasn't necessary. It could have ended before that happened. I don't know. Just
where would you have ended the film?
Him dropping her off.
And just she goes to the door, boom.
I just would have ended it like, people can be nice to us and we don't have to have sex with them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And then
Cool.
that's it. Like I just would have ended it there. I don't I don't know. I think he pushed it a little bit further to have us talk about the ending a little bit more.
Justine, thoughts on the ending?
I still have mixed feelings on the ending because I don't like it. And listening to Molly speak, I think it's like articulating some of it. Um, I think the movie does a lot of work to make us like Igor. Even the casting, like I love that actor so much from Compartment Number Six. It's like a movie from like a year or two ago. I think he's like very likable as a character. And I think that like in that final act and throughout the film, Sean Baker is kind of going above and beyond to kind of articulate the fact that Anora does not see him as like a equal, or that she's not, they have like some tension. There's like a bit of attraction, I would say, from the onset, more him towards her. And he's supposed to be respectful and all of these things. And it almost feels like in that final scene where it's like Sean Baker is like strangely like throwing the character a bone, but that's doesn't even seem consistent with the character. He doesn't seem to need that from her. And I do think that even if he had just dropped her off, I actually think that would have been a better ending, because it kind of also leaves it a bit more open-ended. Like, will they see each other again? Will they never see each other again? Um, it would, I think, restore some dignity to Honora, because she gets all this, she's like uplifted so high, and then she loses everything and more. Um, and I think it's like the last moment we see her, it doesn't read to me as her being vulnerable, which I think is what the film is trying to tell you. It's like just a humiliation. And I don't know, I do think it's like it is interesting to talk about and is a lot more clear than just having someone walk away. But I think that I would have been more satisfied by that open-endedness rather than this quite hard scene to watch.
It felt like watching someone get raped. Like it didn't feel like that was part of his character that he would want to have sex with her at the end. So then she does it and then we see her feel bad about it. And I don't know, like it was just this weird ick to me. Ugh.
Yeah, it's a very heavy scene, and you're right. Like it definitely does, because I've said multiple times, like I feel like this movie has multiple other places that could have ended, including what you guys just talked about, where it's like drop her off. Actually, when I saw her go, because you see through the side window, the bags get dropped off. Like as soon as she walks to the door, that could have been just like a hard cut to black. Done. Movie's over, right? Scott, what about you, man?
Okay, so I'm going to apologize. Like, don't think I'm being vulgar or anything. Or so the way I saw the ending, and trust me, I don't like the ending either. Is technically for however long this movie was. What was it, like 2 hours, 10 minutes?
Something like that. I've got a running time of an hour, 40 minutes. Or sorry, 140 minutes.
Okay.
But yeah, just
so for this whole movie, she was being fucked like by Vanya. Like it was just like really fast, just like fuck. Like she even tried at the one port, like, you could go slow, but you just literally watching her getting fucked the whole time. And then when it goes to the car, it's like Igor's trying to actually make love to her. Like the breakdown only happens once he tries to pull her head down to kiss, right? And then that's when she like slaps him, because she's, I guess, whatever he was trying to say, it made it seem like it's like here's a guy who's not trying to use me kind of thing. But again, it didn't match the characters and everything that happened. And I agree, like in reality, the movie should have ended when she was like, this car is yours, like this car seems like you, and he goes, do you like it? And she goes, no.
Men have nice cars, not because they like nice cars, because they know women like nice cars.
And then he goes, it's my grandma's car. And then that should have ended right there, right?
That'd be a good ending too.
Right? But then, yeah, after that, all of a sudden now she's like, well, he was nice to me like for a day, I feel like. I guess he should get something, and then it's way more than she's technically willing to give, I guess. So yeah, like the breakdown and everything like that, to me, I think it wasn't a natural part for the character and how she was being portrayed.
Yeah. I mean, I would have ended this movie, like I said earlier. I kind of like when she's just about to leave the airport or get on her flight or whatever, and she basically goes like, "Your son's a bitch," like just like, and the dad laughs and everybody. I think that would have been a cool like high point to leave to, where because then Anora does leave back on top, in my opinion, right? So, do you guys have any films that you think that would be better representations or good double features, including whether it's Baker or any other director? Like, do you think that this should be double featured with? Justine, what do you think?
I'm not sure about double features. I have to think. It's like if you want to like have a heart attack, Uncut Gems is I
Yes.
think
Which
similar.
one? What order would you do them in?
I would do Anora first and then Uncut Gems second.
Yeah, Uncut Gems. I almost got to take like a lorazepam to watch that movie. It's very stressful.
Yeah, yeah, but it's more fun. Otherwise, it's like it's hard to say because like a lot of the examples that I come up with that I think feel like are good or interesting portrayals of sex work are like older. So it's like films like Variety, Betty Gordon, Jeanne Dielman, still classic for a reason. I'm trying to think of any others that kind of come to the top of my head. I'm not sure. I'll have to think more about it.
Molly, you got anything?
I like Working Girls, just old.
Oh, like
as
isn't
well.
that the one with
Only Griffith?
is that Melanie Griffith? Yeah.
No.
No. That is that Showgirls?
Oh, that's Working
Oh.
No,
Girl.
that's
I think that's
Working
Working
Girl.
Girl.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh,
It's,
I was like, oh,
yeah,
Sigourney
It's
Weaver.
like
I like it.
Sigourney Weaver, Harrison Ford. I was like, oh, I
Working
like that
Girls
movie.
is
It's fun.
I don't
It's
actually think
Lizzie
I've seen.
Borden.
Yeah,
I also love that movie.
yeah. Actual like representations of sex work are actually like very spot on. Like, yeah, like the clients are so diverse, like it's great. If I were teaching like a university class on film and stuff, I would totally just be like, write a paper and like watch Pretty Woman with this and like compare them because I think the story in terms of like her journey is very similar. Just like over a longer period of time, and there's more like assault in one.
Well, and
But
they also even do the whole joke from Pretty Woman, like, I would have done it for this. I would have paid that. Like, there's a couple like hard nods to Pretty Woman. You know what I mean?
yeah, like I think that those would make really like a good double feature in terms of, yeah. There was something that I was talking about with somebody at like another representation, but I can't think of the fucking like what movie or TV show or something it was. It's been a little bit. Um,
So Sean Baker is actually, again, as we talked briefly about, so Andrea Warren is Canadian writer and actress. She wrote the book. Sorry?
You didn't ask me.
How dare you?
I'm coming back to you. I didn't forget about you. Hold on. I just want to make sure I get this out of my notes. So she wrote Modern Horror, and then there was a short film done on it. And so Sean Baker's actually the EP on a feature that's being made on that film now. And she's also did some work and acted in Paying for It, which played at TIFF as well. So just a little, like, we like to talk about CanCon as well. I think that's a cool like intersection. Yes, Scott. So go ahead now. What would you bookend it, or what would you double feature this with, or your example of better representation of sex work?
Oh no, it's just I'm just gonna go with Flashdance because it's like the high and low, and both like soundtracks are really fucking good.
Yeah, the soundtrack in this is very good.
Really?
Do you guys have?
That was it?
Yeah,
I thought I would have more reaction from you. Like,
Yeah.
I thought you were
I
a
don't know.
maniac on the dance floor, Chris.
I am a maniac on the dance floor. I'd put this with the full Monty because then you get male dancers and you get a female dancer there. Do you guys have anything else you want to say on this film before we get out of here? Nope. Okay, cool. So it's got a
I need to watch it
97.
again.
Sorry, what's that?
I need to watch it again.
Would you recommend it?
Yeah, I mean, it's an entertaining movie. Like, watch it. Yeah, I don't know. I talk a lot of shit, but like I still think the movie was good overall. It's just, it could have ended sooner, and there's,
Some problematic aspects.
I think some people could have done it better, but like she was really good. The story's like mostly okay. I think Vanya's actually like at the very beginning when you first meet him and they're first in his house and he's like doing flips on the bed and shit. I'm like, I've definitely seen people like that. Like that is an actual, like that seems like a real client to me. Like he was so excited. So I actually like there was like a moment when we're watching it and I'm like, I look at my friend and I'm like, I've seen people so much like this because my client base is so much younger. That yeah, I would say
They're
watch
just like
it.
super stoked to be like getting down kind of thing.
Yeah, she's hot. She's in his house. Like he's so
And he's like,
excited.
I'm gonna have sex with this woman. Like she's gonna let me be inside of her.
Yeah.
What about you, Justine?
Yeah, I
Recommend
would
it?
also recommend it. I think it's an interesting film. I think it's worth kind of coming to your own conclusions about what it's about. It is like at the very least like a movie that's interesting to talk about. And as somebody who watches a lot of movies, there's definitely worse options out there. So yeah, I still recommend it.
Where do you put it as far as Baker's work is concerned? This question's open to everybody, obviously. I'm just thinking about this as we're talking.
Middle-ish, middle.
What's your favorite of
Um,
his work?
I really like Red Rocket. I think it's the closest to Sean Baker. I think that's the his actual vision of the world, and it's a very dark and terrible thing. But
And it's
I think
fucking hilarious too.
it is
Funny.
I think it's a very honest film. I really like Florida Project as well. I generally like all of his films to a certain degree. Again, I have some questions about what about him and how he sees the world that I that still linger that I can't really take.
Scott?
I have one comment
Oh, go ahead.
first.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Molly. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Why does he use the F word so like faggot? He uses
Ooh.
it so much in Anora. Like, did you guys not like I'm watching this movie and they just drop it so much? I'm like, this is so unnecessary.
But do you think the
That's the
characters
only
talk like that, maybe?
they don't have to. They're characters.
I mean,
Make them say something.
yes.
They can call him a
I
little bitch. They don't have to call him a faggot. Like, I don't know. It's just like it made me so uncomfortable when I'm watching it.
okay, but doesn't that go ahead, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna
Gonna
say, is it possibly like a cultural thing because they are
Eastern
Russian?
Bloc, yeah.
But they
Yeah.
still could have used any other word. I'm like, they're not going to drop like the N word. He couldn't
mean,
do
No,
that. He can't. He can't
that's for
put that in a-
Quentin Tarantino. That's
That's
for
it,
Yeah,
that's
but I
Quentin,
mean,
yeah.
like but he couldn't get away with it. Like, I don't know. It just felt a little weird. I don't know.
I don't know, Justine, what do you think? That's a very interesting question, actually.
I don't have an answer. I feel as though like it didn't necessarily like clock for me, but I watched it with French subtitles, so I was also like probably distracted. But I'm wondering like I don't hear people use that word that much in general, and so I'm like, but then I'm like I don't hang out around Russians or Armenians that much
Russian gangsters,
either.
that's not a part of your
No,
social group.
not usually. I do feel though, like maybe because like Sean Baker is kind of like adjacent to a lot of like the edgelordy stuff online too. That maybe it's like him just being provocative. I'm not sure the film is
Yeah.
enhanced by it. Uh, but maybe he's like, look, I spent time with these Russian gangsters, and that's just all they said all day long. And to be truthful, it's like I don't know.
I think it was just
I don't
unnecessary. It doesn't add, is where I'm at. So I'm just
I would agree with that.
anyway, sorry.
Sorry, Scott, go ahead, Scott, finish
I would
what you're
give
gonna say.
it. I'd recommend it. Give it 4 stars, and I can see, Mikey Madison, being a front runner come award season too. And I can even see this as best original like screenplay. But I can see this being an awards darling come award season.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely do well at the Independent Spirit Awards. It's got, because it's made for a $6 million budget, so it's way under the 30 million cap. It's done 11 million at the box office, which is pretty good for kind of this like little indie film. And it's got a 97% from the critics and a 92% from the audience. I do recommend it myself. My favorite two Sean Baker films are Tangerine, which was shot on like an iPhone 5, which is like super erratic. If I was going to go triple feature, you could go this, Tangerine, and you could even then throw in Uncut Gems, because again, there's about a lot of like kinetic energy in the films. And then obviously Red Rocket is fucking hilarious. Like, and the main character is such a piece of shit. So so Molly, before we let you go, and when we do stop, don't actually leave. Where can people contact you, and what kind of stuff do you want us in the show notes so people can find you?
I'm like mollyjoparton.com will have like all of my links, but it also links to my it's like a forwarding page for my escorting website, so there's a whole lot of stuff on there, but it's Molly Jo Parton, no E on the Joe, at like all social media platforms, mostly
Cool.
Instagram. But
and Justine, you want to also run down the links to your stuff, and if someone wants to hire you to write some scripts, how do they get a hold of you?
You can send me a message on Twitter or my email. But you have to pay me. So I've had people, I've had a lot of people who are like, oh, like, but it's for fun. I'm like, it's not. No.
You're like, it's called work.
Yeah. So that's important.
Okay, so I am going to finish with this quote from David Jenkins from Little White Lies. Baker shoots and choreographs like a punk Cassavetes, toying with dynamics, color, and texture while always creating chunky knots of overlapping dialogue in a bid to heighten tension, to break point, and beyond.
And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, we're just at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com.
So, do you think I missed anything? Do you think we got a good show there, Scott?
Yeah, no, it was good. The one thing, like, because we were supposed to talk about like his other movies too. Like, I wonder like how far along when the Florida project was released, did Disney see that final scene and like, I don't think he had permission for this.
You're talking about the one that he shot. So because the whole film,
it's the little girls running, right? And
yes.
Then they eventually run into Disney.
Yeah, and they used so that's where they pivoted off of their 35 millimeter to iPhones again. Yeah. To grab that, because it's 100% undercover, like it's true Gonzo filmmaking. So
yeah, so I always wondered like how, because you'd figure like Disney would be like, do we really want the Magic Kingdom associated with this? Because all the streets were there and everything like that. But yeah.
Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.